Think about the last time your security team ran an access review. They reviewed employee accounts, contractor accounts, maybe a few service accounts that someone forgot to clean up. But here's what they almost certainly didn't review: the AI agent that your DevOps team spun up last Tuesday. The one that has read access to your AWS S3 buckets, write access to your internal ticketing system, and the ability to trigger workflows in your ITSM tool automatically, at scale, around the clock. It doesn't have a badge. It doesn't show up in your IGA platform. And right now, in most enterprises, it doesn't have an identity. Welcome to the next IAM crisis. And if you work in identity and access management, this one is yours to solve. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what non-human identities are, why AI agents are creating a completely new category of identity risk, how your existing IAM tools, SailPoint, CyberArk, Entra ID, are struggling to keep up, and the 4 questions every IAM architect must answer before any AI agent goes live in their environment. Let's get into it. Non-human identities are not a new concept. We've had service accounts since the early days of Windows Active Directory. We've had API keys, certificates, SSH keys, OAuth tokens. All of these represent machine identities that authenticate to systems without a human typing a password. In fact, by most estimates from firms like CyberArk and Gartner, non-human identities already outnumber human identities in the average enterprise by a ratio of 45 to 1. 45 machine identities for every 1 human. And yet, the tools, the processes, and the governance frameworks we have built, they were designed for humans. Quarterly access reviews, role-based certifications, password expiry policies, manager approval workflows. None of that maps cleanly to a service account that doesn't have a manager, or a certificate that rotates every 90 days, when it remembers to rotate at all. Now enter AI agents. An AI agent is not just a script that runs on a schedule. It is a system that can reason, plan, take actions, and in many cases spin up sub-agents to complete tasks on its behalf. Think of tools like LangChain agents, AutoGen, or the growing number of agentic frameworks being deployed in enterprise environments. These agents need access. They call APIs. They read databases. They write to external systems. They impersonate human users in some workflows. And unlike a static service account, their blast radius changes dynamically based on what task they are executing. That is the identity problem that traditional IAM was never built to handle. Let me walk you through the 3 places where your current IAM stack breaks down when it encounters an AI agent. Problem 1. Onboarding. In a standard IGA platform like SailPoint Identity Now, identity onboarding is triggered by an HR event: new joiner, new account. There's a workflow, a manager approves, access is provisioned. But who triggers the onboarding workflow when a developer deploys an AI agent on a Friday afternoon? In most organizations today, nobody. The agent gets a long-lived API key stored in a config file, and that's the end of the governance story. Problem 2. Access certification. Access reviews rely on the concept of a business owner, a human who can say, yes, this identity still needs this access. But for an AI agent, who is that person? The developer who built it? The product manager who owns the use case? The platform team that hosts the infrastructure? The accountability is diffuse. And when accountability is diffuse, certification becomes a rubber stamp. Problem 3. Privileged access. CyberArk, Beyond Trust, Delinea, PAM tools are excellent at managing human privileged access. Vault a credential, check it out. Record the session, check it back in. But an AI agent doesn't check out a credential for 30 minutes. It may call a secret dozens of times per second. The session recording concept doesn't apply. The human review of recordings doesn't scale. And if the agent is spawning sub-agents dynamically, you now have credential propagation happening at machine speed across an identity perimeter that your PAM tool wasn't designed to see. The tooling is catching up, but the governance thinking has to come first. And that's where IAM professionals have an enormous opportunity right now. The good news is that the major IAM vendors are paying attention. SailPoint has been evolving its non-human identity capabilities within Identity Now and Identity IQ. The focus is on extending the identity lifecycle, onboarding, certification, and deprovision to include machine accounts and increasingly AI workloads. Their acquisition of Intello brought in SaaS account intelligence, and the roadmap points toward agentic identity governance. CyberArk launched its Secrets Hub and has been building out its machine identity security capabilities specifically for cloud-native environments. They've acknowledged publicly that AI agents represent a new class of identity risk that requires dynamic secrets management, not static, long-lived keys. Microsoft Entra ID is expanding its workload identity features. Workload identities in Entra cover service principals, managed identities, and increasingly the identities assigned to AI workloads running on Azure. The conditional access policies and risk scoring that we apply to human identities are being extended, imperfectly but directionally, to workload identities. There is also a broader emerging standard worth knowing: SPIFFE, the Secure Production Identity Framework for Everyone. It's an open standard for issuing cryptographic identities to workloads, and it's gaining real adoption in cloud-native architectures. If you haven't looked at SPIFFE yet, add it to your reading list. The direction of travel is clear. Every AI agent will eventually need a governed identity. The question is whether your organization is building that capability now or scrambling to retrofit it after an incident. So how do you actually start governing AI agent identities in your environment today? I want to give you a practical framework. 4 questions that every IAM architect should be able to answer for every AI agent in their organization. Question 1. Who owns this agent? Every AI agent must have a named human owner. Not a team, not a department, a named individual who is accountable for what that agent does, what access it holds, and when it should be deprovisioned. If you can't name that person, the agent should not go to production. In your IGA platform, this owner maps to the entitlement owner or business owner field. That field cannot be blank for a machine identity any more than it can for a human one. Question 2. What is the minimum access this agent needs? Least privilege is not a new concept, but we apply it inconsistently to machine identities because machines don't complain when they can't access something. A developer will grant broad access upfront to avoid having to come back and add permissions later. For AI agents, this is dangerous. An agent with write access to your data warehouse and the ability to call an external API has a blast radius that can span your entire data estate. Define the minimum scope, document it, enforce it, review it quarterly. Question 3. Can you audit what this agent actually did? Your SIM, whether that's Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel, or IBM QRadar, needs to be able to distinguish between a human action and an agent action. If your logs just show an API call with a service account token, you have an auditability gap. The agent's identity must produce attributable, searchable audit logs. Every action must be traceable back to a specific agent, a specific version of that agent, and a specific triggering event. If you can't reconstruct the chain of actions after an incident, you cannot do forensics. Question 4. What is this agent's offboarding plan? In the human identity world, offboarding is triggered by an HR event. Leaver workflow runs, accounts are disabled, access is revoked. But when an AI project winds down, or worse, when it just quietly stops being used, the agent's identity lives on. The API keys stay active. The service account sits in your directory with full access, unmaintained and unmonitored. This is your zombie identity problem, and it is one of the most common findings in IAM security assessments today. Define a TTL, a time to live, for every AI agent identity. When the project ends, or when the agent hasn't been active for a defined period, there must be an automated trigger to deprovision it. 4 questions: owner, least privilege, auditability, offboarding. If your organization can answer all 4 for every AI agent it runs, you are ahead of 90% of enterprises right now. For those of you working in global capability centers, particularly in BFSI, this is not a theoretical conversation. RBI's guidelines on IT governance and the DPDP Act both have implications for how AI systems access, process, and store data. When an AI agent reads customer data to process a loan application, that agent is a data processor. Its identity, its access, and its audit trail fall squarely within the scope of your data governance obligations. HSBC, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, their GCC security teams in Bengaluru and Hyderabad are actively building frameworks for AI agent governance right now. If you are in IAM at one of these organizations or aspiring to be, this is the conversation happening in the rooms where decisions are made. The IAM professionals who understand both the identity governance framework and the AI agent architecture will be the ones shaping those decisions. That is the opportunity in front of you. To summarize what we covered today, non-human identities already outnumber human identities in the enterprise. AI agents are a new and more dangerous category of machine identity because they are dynamic, autonomous, and capable of lateral movement that a static service account never had. Your existing IAM stack, IGA, PAM, identity platform, is directionally evolving to handle this. But the governance thinking must come from IAM professionals like you. Apply the 4-question framework: owner, least privilege, auditability, offboarding. Start there. If you found this useful, subscribe to AI Made Simple. Share this with one colleague in your IAM or security team who needs to hear this conversation. And drop a comment below with one question about AI agent identity that you want me to answer in a future video. I'll see you in the next one. If you haven't watched my earlier videos on what is an LLM, how RAG actually works, and RAG versus fine-tuning. Those are the foundation for everything we talked about today. Links are in the description.